some special guests with us. I want Pastor George and Sister Wendy to open us up with some words first to talk a little bit about why we're here, to introduce themselves, and then we will go ahead and get started. So Pastor George, Sister Wendy.
All right, absolutely. I thank God for this opportunity, and I thank God for my brother Ken and my new friend, Rabbi Navarez. It's a pleasure working with you all. The purpose of this is to come together as a faith community to address some of the problems. Some of them are old and systemic, but we want to address them with love and with optimism, knowing that God can bring us closer together as a community, and together we can make progress for the kingdom and for the Lord, and make this land a better land. And that's what this is all about, that we come together and discuss the issues and come together and come with a strategic plan for progress for everyone. And that's my introduction.
I just want to say thank you for everybody, to everyone for joining, for Rabbi Jason and for Pastor Ken, Sister Vanessa. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me okay? Vanessa says it's a little, okay. I'm excited about this opportunity because what's most important and what's at the center of this is love. And I think that as we share together some of our differences and some of our interests and our concerns, love will be at the center and we'll be able to bring everyone together. So I'm looking forward to us talking about some very sensitive issues, being very open and transparent, and we look forward to all of the Facebook audience chiming in and engaging. So thank you.
Awesome. And I'll just start with introducing myself a little bit, and I'll turn it over to Rabbi Jason to introduce himself. But again, my name is Vanessa Davis. I am a mental health consultant. I work with an organization called Just in Time for Foster Youth. Can you hear me?
Going in and out a little bit.
Okay, I work at an organization called Just in Time for Foster Youth, and we assist youth that are transitioning out of the foster care system. And I'm also the co-founder of an organization called Mommies and Mimosas Supportive Network, geared towards helping mothers be connected to a community, achieve wellness and economic mobility. And we're gonna open it up when I'm having everyone introduce themselves by talking a little bit about what racial reconciliation means to them, or what it looks like for them. So I will start by answering that question. For me, what racial reconciliation really means is it's a twofold thing. And one, I think it's for people to heal their identity that they have with themselves, how they view themselves, by recognizing that we are all created in the image of God. And I think being a Black woman and being a Native American woman, we have been oppressed in this country. And sometimes when you've been oppressed for so long, you lose sight of the fact that you were made in the very image of God. And then the other part of that is seeing that the people that don't look like us, that may disagree with us, are also made in the image of God. So that's what racial reconciliation looks like to me. So Rabbi Jason, thank you so much for being here. Please share with us a little bit about what you do and what racial reconciliation means or looks like.
It's an honor to be here with all of you, and thank you so much for the invite. Really heartfelt, and I'm looking forward to our continued fellowship as we get moving along here. So I'm Rabbi Jason Navarez. I am the new senior rabbi at Beth Israel, in Congregation Beth Israel in San Diego, and we are in UTC area. And I have been previously in New York at a congregation for 17 years. And so this is my first time venturing west, but along the work that I love to do in congregational life has been working in multi-faith settings and interfaith partnerships. So, and some of that leads right into the tough work that we're talking about today. And so when you pose the question about thinking about what race reconciliation is, for me, there are three angles through it. One is about recognition, one's about empowerment, and one's about a restorative justice. Mm-hmm. So the recognition first is that we have to recognize that racism in the United States is systemic and it's ongoing, and that it transcends politics, it transcends economic opportunity, And we know that, and we have to start to recognize this as reality, as facts on the ground. Secondly, for me, it's about empowering local communities through what we're doing right now, through fellowship, through relationship building, through trying to figure out how we're going to come together as community and provide opportunities for what I like to call truth telling. This is where we are. We need truth, and we're here together to share our personal truth and our communal truth. And the last is restorative justice. And this has been something that I've been very passionate about and thinking about in repairing that harm that has been caused. How are we going to bring restorative justice to our legal system, to our law enforcement system, and how are we going to bring it to one another in the silos that we live, because we have to do all this work together, and it's sacred work and it's holy work, and we have a long way to go. But I believe if we start with those elements, those can help us transcend what we're really struggling with and bring us to a point where we can come together. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And then Dr. Ken of Standing Stone Ministry, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about the work you do, and what does racial reconciliation mean to you, or what does that look like to you?
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this. I direct a ministry called Standing Stone, and we care for pastors and ministry leaders and their spouses around the country. We're caring for over 2,500 of them right now, and in 30 different nations. And so I've been in pastoral ministry for 46 years. I have come to understand the church and the faith community has done a terrible job in the area of reconciliation. And I have a biblical worldview, and through scriptures, I've come to understand that God has given us a ministry of reconciliation. And as ministry leaders across the country and around the world, if we are not operating in that calling, in that ministry of reconciliation, then it's not going to get done. And you know that we have within different systems, we have broken systems, but I'm not surprised by that, because we're broken people. And so, you know, I look at George and Wendy McKinney right now, and I have been adopted into their family as one of their brothers and a son to the Bishop McKinney. And in that
Can I get in that
process, yeah, I bet you can. I bet, but I'm the last son, so you might have to come. You know what? You come in front of me, Rabbi. That'd be
I could
great.
I could be adopted.
Bishop
It's all good.
work on
It's all good.
But the thing is, I've come to understand that I've been adopted into God's family. And because of that, I come into it humbly and recognize that there is a family of people that have been created, like you said, Vanessa, in the image of our God. And by looking and embracing one another, we are truly embracing our God. And that's what I want to do right there. So we have a lot of work to do, but I'm so privileged to be a part of this panel today.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And Dr. Ken, we heard you, but it looks like your screen froze a little bit, and we're able to hear you well, but you're not moving on the screen. I just want to let you know.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I live out in a very remote part of the country, and I have my hotspot going, but it's the best that I can do right now. I'm so sorry.
Awesome. You're kind of moving now, though, so that's good. And Pastor Jordan and Sister Wendy, do you guys want to answer that question? What does racial reconciliation mean to you or look like for you?
My name is Pastor George McKinney, and to me, it means the faith community intentionally coming up with strategies to deal with problems. We have to come with both short-term, mid-range, and long-term goals. We need to figure out areas that we can identify that we agree upon and build on those areas. And I think there are plenty of areas that we agree upon and we can build upon. And if the church, the Christian and the people of faith get together, the Jewish community, the Muslim community, if we get together and tackle these issues, I think great progress can be made in this nation. Our system is a fragile system, and we cannot afford to let it unravel at the seams. But we have a duty to do our best to repair the breach and to be the healing salve for our communities everywhere that are suffering right now.
Yeah, if I may, Vanessa, just to piggyback just a little bit on Rabbi Jason's comment, it's about truth. It's about walking in truth. I'm not afraid of the truth. I believe really the truth will set us free. So I am so grateful for being able to be in a discussion where we can focus on truth. Wendy, I didn't mean to cut you off, sweetheart.
Okay, you're my brother and I love you.
I know you do.
I just wanted to add, I think it's the same in any communities, whether it's a faith community or not. Two words that come to mind in addition to what we've just said, and that is communication and empathy. Those are the two words that just stand out for me. And that is, but as a faith-based community, we have an obligation because we are people of love. We're people trying to save souls and help people get to God. So we have an obligation to participate in reconciliation. And when you talk about reconciliation, I think about and reconnected. So in order for us to reconnect, we need to have a basis of reconnection, and that starts with communicating. You can't reconnect if you cannot communicate, and you cannot reconnect if you don't have empathy. And I think that's a big issue is standing in the shoes or looking at things from someone else's vantage point. And I think that's a big challenge because some people just don't get it. Some people just don't understand. You can paint a picture for them, but you don't understand hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression all the way down to from great-grandmother, great-grandfather, all the way to today, to last night, to last week, some of the things that have happened. So empathy is a challenge. And I think if we can get communication and empathy together, wrapped around with a page of love, then I think we can get somewhere.
Awesome, thank you. So we'll jump into our first question. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but this is a conversation that's represented by multiple perspectives. It's an interfaith conversation. We have different faiths represented here, which I think is so amazing because it's representative of the world. Different generations. I'm a lot younger than all of you.
Throw it in our faces, would you?
But I said that to say that, for my generation, my peers, I'm on social media all the time, and there's just so much infighting and tension that's happening right now, even to the point where I have to log off of social media for a few days because it's just too much. I feel like we've lost the ability to communicate with one another. But I know for people that are my age and from my background, my friends, a lot of them have left the church. And I know I've been discouraged just having grown up in the foster care system, and I've seen how racism, how it's so embedded in our systems and in our society. And going to church, it seemed like we really did not touch on those conversations at all. And so I hate to start the first question with why, but why? That's the elephant in the room to me. Why has the church, why have people of faith not been having these conversations? For whoever wants to jump in and answer that first.
Pastor Ken, let you ready.
Well, I'll go ahead and throw in a little bit. First of all, I know that there is a responsibility for the things we know. In serving in the pastorate, when you hear the needs of people, when you hear the struggles of people, you have a responsibility with what you know. And what are you going to do about it? What actions are you going to take? And because of that, it takes time. Just reaching out to somebody to help them, to provide whether care or services or even just praying for somebody, that takes time and it's demanding. And of course, our world is full of situations and things around us that is calling out to us and demanding our time. But it's very important that when we know what is the right thing to do and we don't do it, then it's really our sin. And we need to do something about it. I think a lot of people just have turned a blind eye to it because they just don't want to get involved. It's too time consuming. It might cost them something. It might cost them their reputation or whatever it is. Some friends that are thinking differently or, you know, that are really just not caring. And so I think that that's a big thing. I think the church, for the most part, is kind of turned a blind eye based on it's going to cost us something to be involved in areas of righteousness.
I can speak about in the Jewish community, there's a difference because we have different movements and different sects of Judaism. And so each of us allies to different philosophies of how we look at who's my neighbor. That's the first part. And so as a Reformed Jewish rabbi, my language has always been about who's my neighbor, whether it's the individual who's cleaning the bathrooms in the synagogue, or whether it's the person whose name is on the building. It doesn't matter who. Everybody deserves to be seen and heard and valued. The challenge that we have, even within the context of Jewish life, is that race continues to be an issue within the Jewish context. For example, we are now dealing with issues around Jews of color and what that is in the sphere of Jewish life and how we're trying to figure out ways to embrace and how to turn off stereotypes and how to turn off preconceived understandings and notions and conditioning. Because I believe, along with what the pastor said, that we're conditioned. We're conditioned just as we are when we're looking at issues of gender. We're conditioned when we're looking at issues of race, or when looking at conditions of socioeconomic disparity. We're conditioned to understand and respond to it a certain way. And what we're asking people to do right now is we're asking people to change their conditioning. And that conditioning takes time. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that happens in a vacuum, and it's not something that happens without going against the grain. It's not something that happens when we're not challenging or pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones. And so what I believe is that it's getting out of our own way, because we somehow get in our own way. But I believe that we collectively, and not just as Jews and Christians and Muslims, we have a sacred responsibility to start to push against the grain and the conditioning in which we have been born into, because the conditioning does not elevate us; it only suppresses us. Mm. And so that's the work that I believe we have to do in the world, is to move through the conditioning.
And Pastor George, before you share, I just wanted to, obviously it's not just non-Black churches that have strayed away from having these conversations. The Black church has also not typically I don't recall a lot of conversations around race or sermons around race or racial inequity or social justice in the Black church, when we don't necessarily have the backlash that other people might face. So why has the conversation been silent in the Black church, would you say?
I think the Black church has been lost in the traditions that we uphold. We have a certain routine that we have. And just as Ken mentioned with his church and his community, we get locked up in the same thing. We're following tradition. People are hurting. They're in the streets. we're so tied into our little tiny shell, our little tiny community in our four walls that we forget what's out, that we're called outside the four walls. And so the Black church bears as much responsibility as any other faith community in this whole thing. And we come to this, as a pastor, I come to this thing humbly, wanting to learn, but knowing that ultimately we together have to work on short range, mid range, and long range goals so that we all continue in the struggle and we don't lose each other. One of the things I really appreciated about my father growing up is that he had us go to a Catholic parish for service, for mass. I grew up going to visiting a Jewish synagogue. I've been to Muslim houses of faith. I had to be exposed to every different area of faith, which gave me a respect and an admiration for those people, for people who are outside of just my little circle. But as I grew up and as we get lost into these things, we forget about the things that are important, which is we need to visit each other and we need to share with one another. And as we began to develop that relationship, then we become a powerful, united force against racism or any type of thing that may come against us. And I think that's where we lost out.
You know, if I may, not having familiar people around you, we lose that sense of feeling safe. We allow fear to grab our hearts, to keep us from being with people. You know, Wendy, if I don't know if you'd be willing to share, but George and Wendy got to spend a whole week with us. We'd never met before. I guess, George, I'd met you just briefly down in San Diego, but they were going to come and stay with us in a home for a whole week, one couple with one couple. And Wendy, would you be willing to share just a little bit of what you felt at that time?
When I first got there or after at the end?
Yeah, no, before you got there.
Right, before we got there. So here we are, an African-American couple, and there's this white couple, loving, fine, that says, we're going to take you to a beautiful home, small mansion on the beach in Orange County and serve you for a week.
Yeah.
I said, these people are going to kill us. They're going to get us into this house, gated community, and then we get there, and they grab their bags, and they take us down the steps, and they're like, no, don't do anything. No, I was like, honey, they are going to kill us. Nobody's going to find us. Because we didn't know. We didn't tell everybody where we were going. You know, it was supposed to be kind of quiet and shit and intimate. Not a secret, like people knew where we were, but we couldn't believe it. And then, you know, as the days progressed, because what was it, 7 days we were together?
7 days.
Exactly what we're talking about now was the barriers were broken because we communicated. The first day, Pastor Ken and his beautiful wife, Leslie, said, they told us everything about their background. Everything from the time they were born, any pros and cons to their upbringing. We're like, oh my God, they told us everything. And then we shared. So we were just transparent. That's how it started. And after that, we were 2 days in, we were family, we were best friends. We couldn't imagine life without each other. And because they served us all the time, that was pretty cool too.
Well, we fell in love with you guys, but because again, communication, transparency, you could tell the fear level decreased, and the desire to embrace each other increased as we shared common stories, common heartache, common struggles, common fears with one another. And within that, there was a connection of hearts that will last forever.
Yes. I wanted to add in there, one of the things that I've heard, and all of you have heard this statistic, I know, because of your experience in ministry, is that the church or the synagogue, the places of faith, is the most segregated place and where people come together. And you think about that and you say, why is that the case? Well, people, all the things that we mentioned, fear, comfort, not wanting to move out of your comfort zone for sure. It's like you come together and you have these commonalities, but it's because we don't have an opportunity to really share like we did, that we are all very much the same. We all have family problems. We all have that family member who we're scared of at dinner time. We all have had some type of financial issue, but of course, at different levels, we have different issues, but we're all the same people that God created that have, we put our pants on one leg at a time. But because of history, because of real things that have happened, we have segregated. And so in the churches, in the faith-based buildings, we are segregated. So that's a big piece too.
It is. And what you guys were talking about, spending that time together, that seems like something that you guys should do on a more massive scale. Like that would be healing for a lot of people. But Rabbi Jason, you kind of touched on this about the conditioning that has happened. And it seems like in our churches and within our faiths that would be kind of the perfect environment to change that conditioning. So how does our religion, our spiritual practices offer those opportunities for healing for our society in this area of racial divide? Like how does that look like? How do we provide that in our churches? How does our faith back that up?
So I think that, first of all, I think our texts are great sources for trying to figure out how to start to maneuver through and to bring language of reconciliation. So the fact, I think we start with Genesis. In Genesis, right in Genesis, we have the text, right? In Hebrew, it says, B'Tselem Elohim, right? It says, God created them in the image of God. Did not specify, I didn't see color in there. I didn't see religiosity in there. We didn't have it just then at that point. We didn't see anything. What we saw was God created humanity in God's image. And for me, that's about starting with scripture helps us kind of balance it. Even when we're talking about politics or socioeconomic disparities or racial injustices, we go to text. People can argue about the text. In fact, I like when people argue and wrestle about text, but they can't argue the fundamental elements of what we're talking about here. We're talking about a society that is based in trying to understand how we move forward together, and we can't evolve when we start to separate ourselves in silos. So for me, how the biggest gift that I feel as faith leaders we can do to offer our communities is to take us out of the walls, the bricks and mortar of our spiritual spaces, and start opening us up for other opportunities. So the fact that we're here on this virtual space, this sacred space, to create some harmony and some rhythm around it is really important. And that's a great first step. But then it requires us to do the footwork, because without the footwork, God can't provide. Yeah. And so our footwork is the major work of that world. And I think that the language in which we start working on education. So you asked about like, what can we do? Bring us out of the walls and educate. Start to envelop us. I've run service learning trips for 17 years to Latin America because I want to get 80%. I want our communities to see how 80% of the world lives in the world. And to say that you may be 4,000 miles away, but that person's our neighbor, and that person's our neighbor. And down the street around the corner, that person's our neighbor. But we can't do that when we're not accessing one another. And so so part of it is like, take the scripture, hold it, embrace it, and then do the footwork by literally getting up and going outside the synagogue or the church walls and start to embrace it. That's the first step.
That's good. That's a good one.
And I say amen for that.
Amen for that.
I cannot agree anymore. That's fantastic, Rabbi.
Well, I do want to push back just a little bit because, I have these conversations with people my age all the time. And one of the things is like, I'm for building community and for us getting outside of ourselves, but there's always that history of racism within the church, in all of our faiths, in the Jewish faith, in the Catholic faith, in the Christian faith, and that inability for people to get past it because they feel like it hasn't been acknowledged. And it's like, how can we, should there be an acknowledgement that takes place for that healing, for that community to happen? Because I feel like sometimes we jump right into the kumbaya, but we don't want to deal with the fact that this is still a very real issue in our churches that people do not want to acknowledge. Like, how do we move past that?
People are afraid to, I think people have fear around, fear holds us back. It holds us back from our truest selves. And fear around the acknowledgement, I've never understood why someone would fear to acknowledge that something is unjust. But I understand that there are people that do. I encounter people all the time that say, let's just be done with this and move on, right? We've said that in other situations. Like, I don't want to hold on to this. We just got to move on. But we can't move on unless we acknowledge what has happened. We can move forward, because I believe if we don't move forward, we're gonna stay complacent, or we're gonna move backwards. But first we have to start with that acknowledgement. And I agree with you, Vanessa. I think there is a challenge with the acknowledgement, and that we haven't gotten there yet. And I think first it's about education, and it's not necessarily the kumbaya moments about bringing people outside the walls. It's about bringing them outside the walls to educate them. When I wanted to uplift our prayer when I was in New York, and I wanted to help our congregation do that, you know where I went? To my friend at the Antioch Baptist Church, because I am spiritually moved when I am in services with my friend there. And and his community, and I understand what happens. And I wanted my community there at the time to experience that a little bit, so they can educate themselves and see where they can shift and change. And yes, that's liturgically, and that's easy to, an easy piece to wrap our heads around. But I think the same goes for us. We got to start to get outside the walls to first have the education. Then I think that leads to awareness and understanding, where people can open themselves up more to say, we have to acknowledge what went on. Because we're not even there yet with a lot of people. They won't get there, but they may be willing to go with their faith leader somewhere. They may be, and that's what I'm willing to bet on, that they may be willing to take that trip.
I really, if I may add here, I really like what you said about restorative justice, because it is restorative justice. In order for you to have that, you have to first recognize that there has been an injury, and that something has gone wrong and somebody is hurting. So what do? We have to make a diagnosis that this is the problem. And then with that diagnosis, we have to look at, how do we heal the wound? What is the best way to treat the wound? And if we can do that, then we can start to see change. But it's more than just saying, I'm sorry. Because, folks have been saying, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I think the churches, I want to put it out there, but the Church of God in Christ and the Assemblies of God came together, and I guess the Assemblies of God, they apologized, and we left because of racism, basically, and we apologized. But after that apology, there was no joint reconciliation, there was no restoration, there was nothing that came after that apology. It was just, so without restorative justice, without the action and the work of healing the wound, it's like they say in the scriptures, sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. And we don't want to be that.
In every meaningful relationship, there's risk. There's risk. And, George, you and Wendy, you've been married for a number of years. And Wendy, if George said to you, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, let's just move on. I don't think you would take that very well, would you?
No,
Wendy?
not at all.
No, you want to know, let's address the issues. Let's acknowledge wrongdoing. Let's go ahead and let's be open and transparent about our feelings.
Yeah.
And then let's Let's try to strategize together a way forward that will speak love and care and safety in any of our relationships as we reach out to people of different races and different faiths. It's all about risking. There's something we must risk. And I think it's absolutely worth risking it all. But we've got to go beyond just getting past things, forgetting about things. We need to address those things. And out of that communication comes real, sincere heart motives and efforts and a confidence that we're going to be able to do this together. That's what I do with my wife in my relationship. We can go forward after everything has been communicated correctly, and the assumptions, a lot of times false assumptions that are made, are dealt with, and we come into an agreement together. Very important.
Good point. Good point.
But I can tell you in my house that you have to own it before we move forward with it.
Absolutely.
So
Rabbi, that's exactly right. We got to own it. We got to own up to that. Yes, absolutely.
we have a saying, admit it and quit it.
All right.
I like it.
I just wanted to add to that, Pastor Ken, you were saying, you're talking about risk. And when you think about investments and you think about finance, you think about risk, you think about reward. And I think, and that's what came to mind to me is that people are hesitant because they want to know what's in it for me. We talk about radio, WIIFM, that everybody wants to be the star of, is what's in it for me. So some people are reserved about it because they're like, what's the benefit to me to put everything on the line and to risk things? I'll just stay in my comfortable little spot and just not move forward. How do you move people forward to that if they don't clearly see a tangible, almost tangible reward for taking this risk?
That's good.
Anybody knows?
You know, I'm sorry, our ministry is almost based on that, Standing Stone, as you know, George and Wendy, because we, for all of our shepherds, we raise our own support so that when we reach out to ministry leaders, we don't want anything from them. We don't want to preach in their church. We don't want them promoting us to people. We don't want them having their people buy our books if we've got books. We don't want anything. In fact, we won't let them buy our lunch. We want to buy their lunch. And it's that kind of relationship that says my motive is not about what you can do for me.
Yes.
I just want to serve you. I want to build a relationship with you. I want to learn about you. I want to have something that the reward of a close relationship with you. That's the reward I'm looking for. And of course, there's so many blessings, so many, you know, to be able to go, you know, to lay your head on your pillow at night and say, Lord, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
Right.
And people open up their hearts to you. They recognize that. They recognize that. So I just think it's important that it might not be, people are asking that question, Sister Wendy, and that is, what's in it for me? Well, when you start giving yourself to others without that motivation of what you're going to, I'm giving, but I'm going to get something back from you, that's when hearts are unlocked. That's when you begin to open up and say, gosh, this person cares about me. I'm important to them. Yeah.
And that's where the faith-based conversation should be different than any other community.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not about what's in it for us, but we are supposed to be living outwardly and always concerned about giving. So that to me that's a perfect segue for what is the responsibility of the faith-based community is we need to be not concerned about the reward, but taking that risk. We have that obligation.
Going back to Genesis, Rabbi,
About Jason.
You know, another thing that was in Genesis was, am I my brother's keeper, which was a statement made by Cain. You know, God asked him, "Where's your brother? His blood cries from me to me from the ground."
Mm.
And so he answered God and said, "Am I my brother's keeper? Is it my responsibility to watch and care for my brother?" And the answer to that is a resounding yes. We are our brother's keeper. It is
Yes.
up to us, and not only family members. I know we have a little household and different things that we are comfortable with, but our brothers are outside our family. They are anybody who is suffering, who needs an encouraging word. Those are our brothers, and we have to have a systematic approach to helping them and to hearing them and to being sensitive to what they're going through, and not to act like it doesn't happen. I know my wife was pregnant with the baby, and when she was going through labor, I wasn't trying to be insensitive, but I it's impossible to be in that much pain. That just doesn't make any sense. But but you have to be. But we have to be sensitive to the pain of others, and just because we haven't, the point is, just because we haven't experienced it doesn't mean that it does not exist.
And see, I want to take you on that track because I know we're almost out of time, but you will never know how I felt. You will never know the pain of me being pregnant. You could try to get pregnant. You will not get pregnant. You will not know the pain that I felt on those 2 C-sections. You will never know. So it's the same with other people. They will never know. So how do you, that's a great, how do you get people, we're back to empathy. How do you get people to understand the pain that you felt and feel?
That's right.
I went into the operating room and I saw all of this stuff going on, and then it brought me to reality of the severity of the situation. And sometimes we have to go into those secret places where our hurt is exposed. And we have to be sensitive to that person. We see all of this stuff and we like, oh my God, this has been painful. And when we see that, we visit churches, if we visit households of faith, if we visit, a guy that lived across the street from us, his name was Mr. Hirschbein. Called him Mr. Hirschbein. I don't even know his first name, but he was a Holocaust survivor. And one of the things I was able to see when I go visit him was the scars. He had scars from here all the way down to his wrist and he said he lost his whole family. And when he would talk about his family, he would get emotional about all the family that were put into these camps and were killed. And we actually have to take a step and walk in somebody else's footsteps in order to feel what they feel. Right now, we're in the situation where the Black folks in this country, African Americans, have been hurting for years, 400 years. They were in slavery, kind of analogous to what happened with the Jews in Egypt. There was, and when you come out of slavery, there's a slavery mentality that takes place. And so there's a liberation that not only of the social justice, but there needs to be an internal liberation and setting free of our minds so that we can even appreciate being free, because you can be free physically, but because of the chains mentally, you're still in slavery. So it's a process. It's a long process. It's a process that we all take advantage of in terms of being a part of the process. But the reward is that the whole society can be changed. In other words, when you become sensitive to me and my culture, and you share your culture, then I feel almost like an obligation. I want to be a part of what's going on in your culture. I want to be a part. I want to be on the forefront on what's going on, because we are uniquely joined. I think that's what the scriptures say, uniquely joined, and we have a share of commonality. And now when we become together, and I think this is the first of many, hopefully, times we can get together where we can discuss this, but action steps, and we can come together and coalesce over some certain steps that we could take. Step 1, step 2, step 3, short term, long term, and look at our future and see how our future is together. I think we can win.
Pastor Wendy, you said something that was really important. That story that you told about being in the delivery room, right? That was a very powerful story. And Wendy, your voice around that you'll never feel my pain, you'll never understand, right? Being male, right? You'll never understand that. But there's something that Pastor George said that was even more telling, which was the question, right? You questioned her. You said, how could it possibly hurt that much? Right? I'm not even going to go, we'll take on therapy sessions after. I'm not even going to go into that session, but I want to, but think about that question, right? About how could it hurt? That's something we see. We know women go through labor. We can see, we get it. We hear the stories. We can't physically, but we still ask the question and we still think it. You asked it out loud, and there are a lot of people that may not ask the question like, how could your blackness, or how could I'm Latino, so how could your, Hispanic brownness, how could your whatever be affecting you in today? You have all the rights and privileges and responsibilities that I do. How is it different? Tell me. So, but this is a question that people are asking, but they're not saying it, and they're silent. And so part of the work that's why it struck me when you did that, because I was like, wow, that's powerful. Because here, people are under the radar, quiet and concealed in their questioning and their wrestling and their naivete and their ignorance and all of those, all the above. And we have to do the work to unleash the questioning first, right? Like, I'm okay with people asking why. I have no problem with that. Let's talk about why. I can't know what it's like to be Black. I don't wear that on my skin. I don't. And so for me to even try to answer that question is irresponsible of me, and also not something that I could ever give properly a response. But those who can, and those who walk in those shoes every day, that's the place where we have to bring the people together. And we also have to be willing to get the questions. Like, we have to be willing to say, why is it important for me? Why should I have a hand in this? Because I don't think we're there yet.
This conversation has been so great. It's been very meaty. And we've talked about so much. We talked about Genesis being made in the image of God. And one of the things that I just want to throw out there as a last question for the individual kind of, Rabbi Jason, what you were touching on, is that one of the things that I feel like separated Adam and Eve from God and even from each other was the shame after they sinned, the covering themselves with fig leaves. And I feel like we've been living in shame every single, hiding ourselves, hiding our thoughts, our pains, our feelings that we have toward each other. So, like, for those individuals that are watching this, that may be touched, that may be wanting to start doing this inner work, but they're hiding themselves, they don't want to release their shame or, expose how they really feel. How can we start moving past that for the individual work that needs to take place? Like, what advice do we have for them?
Well, I'll be glad to share a little bit. I think it begins with our identity in God. How does God, what's his narrative about you? And I want you to know God says, I love you. I love you so. I created you in such a unique and wonderful way. I've created you for good works, unique works. And when we start understanding how our Heavenly Father looks at us and how important, how much intrinsic value that we have to God, that all of a sudden liberates us, helps at least a beginning process of liberating us to say, I'm not a person of shame. It's people are going to think what they want to think, but I have value. And it's stated value, and it's from the God of all creation that's done that. So I think it begins, it needs to begin there in our identity in who we are in the eyes of our Heavenly Father.
Yes. Good stuff.
So we only have a few more minutes, so I guess it would be great for us to go around and just talk about, like, where do we go from here? Where were your takeaways from this conversation? How are you going to implement them into your own ministry work that you do? So I'll start with Dr. Ken.
Well, Vanessa, I would like, can I bring you into this? Because this is very important. You and Wendy being the young ladies in this, on this panel right here. But the thing about it is that, you know, we're in a culture right now where we're in a bite culture. Send out a few bytes of information, a few words here, a few words there. We have in the internet, people are just brutal, like you said earlier on. In their comments, there is no context for the words that we are using. And so I would like to begin by saying we have to have more opportunities for people to share their feelings, their thoughts, their experiences, but to be able to give context to it so that we then can go, oh my gosh, I'm not going to misunderstand. I'm not going to misinterpret. I'm not going to judge you for those words that you're saying that I think means that to me. That might not even mean that to you. And we need to understand one another. So we have a big challenge, and that's where we're in a culture right now where we take bits of information and then we just go places with it. And that's a shame. We need context.
Rabbi Jason?
I completely agree with Ken. I think that I think we need to have more courageous conversations. I think the courageous conversation, even give them platforms. So the courageous conversations are the ways in which we find and start to bring about love in one another. And, you know, for us, it's interesting in Jewish community, which may be not something that people in other fellowships can relate to, that there are people in our communities who are very God-centered and God-focused, and there are others that are not. They're atheists, they're agnostic, or they are connected through Jewish identity, through cultural identity, but not necessarily through a religious identity. And so that changes the language, at least in our sphere, around using God. In all honesty, it's not, and I'm a very faithful individual, and God is very much part of my life. There is that language, but the courageous conversations can transcend that. Courageous conversations are about, where are you right now? Where is your questions? Where are you wrestling? How can we be honest and thoughtful and considerate with each and every one of us? And how are we going to bring our own passion to the table? Because all of you are here because you want to hear other people. That's what we start with. And the hope is that it becomes like spokes where then we can start to spread this out in a larger context and start to get more people involved. But these conversations have to continue. So I'm honored to be any part in that continuation in the sacred work we have to do together.
Awesome. And before I turn it over to Pastor George and Sister Wendy for their closing remarks, I just want to thank both of you, Rabbi Jason and Dr. Ken, for being a part of this discussion. I took so much away from this. I hope that we can continue to have these conversations again in the future, as many times as necessary. We're going to need to keep on and keep on and keep on having them so that we can be transformed. And so with that, I just want to turn it over to Pastor George and Sister Wendy of Impact Ministries. Thank you so much for hosting this call. And where are we going from here?
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you on this Zoom, and there are lots of people chiming in. I wish we could incorporate questions and comments, but time just won't permit. We'll have to figure that out. But I'm grateful because the beginning, what's the scripture says about small beginnings? Do not despise not small beginnings. And I think it's very important that we take these small steps. There's 5 of us here today, but I just imagine this circle getting bigger and bigger and bigger because we've taken this first step. I love the term courageous conversations. I love that as a movement of courageous conversations, because we talked about fear, we talked about empathy, we talked about communication, we talked about education. Those are things. We almost need a training package put together that teaches all of us how to
have these courageous conversations. There's language, there's culture, there's a lot of different things, but I love that this small beginning, we can link up with other small beginnings. This is not the first time there's been a Zoom conversation like this. There's, silos, unfortunately, but as we come together, this circle gets bigger and bigger. We can see this thing coming to pass. And the thing that I want that kind of just rings in my heart is that don't expect everyone, and I think you said it, Rabbi Jason, there's some folks that are atheists, they're gonna be atheists. Don't expect everyone to jump on board and to be a part of want to be a part of this courageous conversation. Everyone's not coming aboard, but there are lots of people that want to, that desire, that may have that shame, that want to become shameless. So I'm looking forward to us continuing these conversations, continuing to build some type of curriculum, some type of movement. I'm all for it. I'm all in it. So Impact is ready to make an impact.
All right. All right.
I want to also,
Speak a little bit louder, Pastor George.
I want to thank Rabbi Jason Navarez. I thank you so much. You are my new brother. Amen.
Can I have you over for dinner?
Yeah, sure.
I'm 100%.
Yes.
Call already.
And Brother Ken, love you, man. You're awesome. I appreciate the work that you and your wife, your lovely wife Leslie, are doing throughout the world. May God continue to bless you. One of the things I wanted to leave is I hope this is the beginning of many of these conversations, but I think what we'll have to do is develop an agenda, things that areas of commonality, and I would challenge each of us to come together and figure out what they are. And then once we develop those areas of commonality that we can agree upon, we can make that the beginning or the foundation of a movement. We don't want to be a monument, because during the 60s, we refer back to what happened? This is what happened in the 60s, and we did this in the 60s. Well, it's 2020 now. And so we need a movement. We need to movement forward. We need to develop those areas that we can agree upon. And then if we do that, we can change this nation. And I believe God will be pleased with our efforts. And that's the great reward.
Amen. I love that. A movement, not a monument. That's good. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Blessings.
Been great.